What lengths would someone go to for money? When love is intertwined with greed, does it lead to the ultimate betrayal? These questions strike at the heart of a chilling reality that many would never want to face. The story we're about to uncover is one that challenges our perceptions of trust, devotion, and the lengths people will go when desperation takes hold. Today we explore the shocking and tragic tale of a Texas woman, a wife and mother, who, when faced with the harsh realities of her marriage, took a path that drove her to poison her husband. It's a haunting reminder of how emotions can twist and turn under the pressures of betrayal, ultimately pushing an individual toward a decision that will forever alter lives. In a seemingly perfect marriage, Michelle and Davidson appeared to embody the all-American couple. Their life together had the classic elements: a home filled with laughter, a child who brought joy and light, and plans for a future that seemed bright and promising. But beneath the surface of this picturesque family dynamic lay an undercurrent of discontent, resentment, and unfulfilled dreams. As time went on, reviews from friends and family painted a complex portrait of a woman who had once aspired to share her life in harmony with her husband. However, Michelle's world had begun to unravel. The pressures of financial strain, combined with the emotional turmoil of perceived betrayal, can twist even the simplest relationships into turmoil. Michelle's suspicion around her husband's fidelity ignited a firestorm of jealousy and insecurity. The moment she discovered that Davidson had taken steps that threatened their stability, and perhaps their family, marked the beginning of an emotional descent that would lead to unfathomable actions. As we delve into this dark narrative, we'll examine the compelling circumstances that led into a lethal conclusion, one where Michelle's love turned into a weapon. The evidence gathered, text messages, financial records, and witness statements paint a chilling picture that unravels the sequence of events leading to her eventual arrest. It's a story that grips the heart and mind, challenging us to consider the fine line between love and betrayal. What drove Michelle to commit such a heinous act? What was the moment that led her to choose a desperate escape from her reality over the life of the person she once claimed to love? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking depths of this crime and the ripple effects it had on everyone involved, because this is more than just a story of tragedy. It's a journey into the heart of darkness that lurks behind closed doors, waiting to be revealed. To fully understand the tragic events that would unfold, we must first explore the life of Michelle Harper, an ordinary woman with dreams and aspirations, whose journey took a drastic turn. Michelle was born and raised in a small suburban town in Texas, where her childhood was marked by both love and adversity. Coming from a close-knit family, she learned the values of compassion, hard work, and perseverance early on. Growing up, Michelle was known for her creativity and nurturing spirit. She cherished the arts and was deeply passionate about writing. Her childhood was filled with moments of inspiration, sparked by poetry and stories, where she envisioned a future filled with creativity and connection. As a teenager, Michelle excelled in school, dreaming of one day becoming a successful author. Despite facing financial challenges within her family, Michelle remained dedicated to her studies, often working part-time jobs to support her educational pursuits. After graduating from high school, Michelle attended a local community college where she continued to hone her writing skills and develop her artistic voice. She was actively involved in various clubs and organizations, often appreciating the camaraderie of friends and the joy of sharing her work. It was during this time that she met Davidson, a charming and ambitious man whose presence would alter her life in unforeseen ways. Their meeting was unforeseen. The two connected at a college social event where Davidson was captivated by Michelle's passion for literature. They spoke for hours that night, sharing dreams and aspirations in a conversation that would ignite the spark of romance. Much like Michael, Davidson was driven and motivated, eager to pave his own path and build a life filled with success. Their passions aligned, and what began as a casual acquaintance blossomed into a profound connection. Now let's turn our attention to Davidson Harper, Michael's husband, a man whose journey through life was marked by ambition, success, and ultimately, a shadow that would hang over their marriage. Growing up in a modest household in Texas, Davidson displayed a hard-working attitude from an early age. His upbringing encouraged values of resilience and determination. Both of his parents worked tirelessly to provide for him and his siblings, instilling in him the belief that hard work led to success. Davidson pursued higher education, earning a degree in business administration. His charisma and drive quickly set him apart in the corporate world, allowing him to climb the corporate ladder with remarkable speed. With a focus on real estate investment, he cultivated a reputation as a go-getter, someone who possessed a keen eye for potential and an innate ability to turn ideas into profitable ventures. Friends and family often spoke highly of Davidson, highlighting his ambition and charm. "He always had a plan," recalled a childhood friend. "From the moment he knew what he wanted, he went for it wholeheartedly." Accomplishments began pouring in, and his financial success allowed him and Michael to enjoy a comfortable lifestyle. However, along with the accolades came the pressures of maintaining that success. Davidson's career consumed much of his time, leading to late nights at work and frequent business trips. While Michelle supported his ambitions wholeheartedly, she often found herself feeling somewhat sidelined. The very qualities that had drawn them together, ambition and passion, now served as a barrier between them. As Davidson rose in his career, the couple eventually purchased a larger home in an upscale neighborhood, a testament to their successes. Yet, with financial security came an undeniable shift. The busyness of life began to take its toll on their relationship, causing friction at home. Friends began to notice the growing distance. Davidson was so focused on work, one mutual friend remembered. He genuinely loved Michelle, but often it seemed like he prioritized everything else over his family time. As their lives progressed, Davidson and Michelle still made an effort to nurture their marriage, but the emotional connection began to fray. Family gatherings often turned into discussions about work, creating an environment where Michelle felt increasingly unseen. "I would watch them together at parties," one relative noted. There were moments of laughter, but also awkward silences. It was clear that the strain of their busy lives was starting to show. In the early days of their marriage, Michelle and Davidson embodied the ideal partnership, encouraging one another's ambitions and dreams. Their love was vibrant, full of promise and youthful energy. In those blissful moments, they were partners in every sense of the word, supportive and filled with shared aspirations. The couple thrived on the excitement of new beginnings. Whether it was attending art shows together, participating in parenting classes, or sharing late-night talks about their hopes and dreams, their bond felt unbreakable. With Davidson's deep admiration for Michelle's artistic talents, he became her biggest cheerleader, always encouraging her to pursue her passion for writing. "You have a gift, Michelle. You need to share it with the world," he would tell her often, his eyes sparkling with pride. For Michelle, Davidson's unwavering support provided the fuel she needed to chase her dreams. She was so inspired by his ambition that she, in turn, felt empowered to push her creative boundaries. As they decorated their first home together, they filled it with art supplies and books, creating an environment that stimulated creativity and comfort. They envisioned a future where they would thrive as individuals and as a family, motivated by one another's dreams. However, as the initial glow of their marriage began to settle, the realities of life began to set in. The pressures of work loomed larger than they had anticipated. Davidson, once a bright-eyed entrepreneur, now faced mounting expectations in his career, leading to long hours at the office and increased stress. While he initially managed his responsibilities with ease, the demands of his job never slowed down. "Things were great at first," recalled a close friend. "They were genuinely happy, but slowly I noticed Davidson becoming more distant. He was just so consumed by work." The couple's dinners that had once been filled with laughter and conversation became evenings cloaked in silence, as Davidson often returned late, exhausted and distracted. With each passing day, Michelle felt the warmth of their connection start to fade. Despite their attempts to maintain that early closeness, the strain of his work began to seep into their daily life. Moments of intimacy were replaced by mundane routines. They would catch glimpses of each other in passing, a hurried kiss before leaving for work, shared glances over breakfast, and the occasional quiet evening spent watching television. The bond they had forged seemed to be overshadowed by the responsibilities they now grappled with. "People have to prioritize their goals," Michael's friend said in reflection, "but that often means sacrificing time together, and for them, that was the beginning of a slow unraveling." As the pressures mounted, Michelle began to feel the exhaustion of trying to uphold the family's emotional foundation while simultaneously pursuing her aspirations. She sought opportunities in art shows and workshops, but often found herself weaving creativity around moments of loneliness. "I felt like I was carrying our dreams while he worked relentlessly. It was exhausting, and I started to feel resentful," she once confided to a close friend, frustration evident in her voice. Each time she attempted to communicate her feelings, she was met with Davidson's fatigue and frustration. "I'm doing this for us. Don't you see? I'm working so hard so we can have a better life," he would insist. But for Michelle, those words felt hollow as days turned into cycles of disappointment. It was during these moments of overwhelming loneliness that matters took an unforeseen turn. As she wrestled with her emotions, Michelle stumbled upon a support group for artists. It became her refuge, a safe space where she could share her struggles and seek advice from peers who understood the delicate balance between ambition and commitment. However, as Michelle sought solace in these connections, she began to see glimmers of opportunity elsewhere. Conversations with fellow artists ignited a spark within her. While Davidson buried himself in work, she started to flourish in her creativity, leading to opportunities that would elevate her artistic aspirations. But this newfound independence began to create an unexpected divide in their marriage. Each step Michelle took toward reclaiming her identity was met with jealousy and resentment from Davidson. He felt threatened by the light she was cultivating, an illumination he quietly feared would eclipse his own achievements. "I could see the changes in him," Michelle reflected one evening, confiding in a friend. "Davidson started to act differently when I began to gain some recognition. It was as if my success made him question his place in our family, and instead of celebrating my achievements, he started to withdraw." The emotional distance grew, and Davidson's jealousy morphed into suspicion. He began questioning Michelle about her time away at workshops and late-night art sessions, inadvertently projecting his insecurities onto her. "Are you sure it's just the art group? I've heard stories about artists getting too wrapped up in their work," he would say, a defensive edge creeping into his tone. These comments stung Michelle deeply, who had merely sought to carve out her own space in a world that had become constraining. Instead of encouragement, she felt as if she were being pulled between her aspirations and a marriage that demanded more than it ever had. As the months passed, tensions escalated. Arguments about time spent away from home began to eclipse their conversations, adding weight to every interaction. Davidson's late-night work, previously accepted, turned into accusations. Do you really need to attend another art show when Lily is home? The reference to their daughter thrust another emotional dagger into Michelle's heart. I'm doing this for us. Can't you see that? Michelle fought back, her frustration boiling over. I want to be a good wife, a good mother, and still pursue my dreams. It's not an either-or situation. Yet their conversations often ended in a stalemate, where hurt feelings left them both feeling empty. The cracks in their relationship, once small fissures, now loomed large, casting shadows over their shared moments. The vibrant love they once nurtured began to fade, replaced by a heavy silence more often than not. One restless night, after a particularly harsh argument, Michelle found herself sitting in the dark, Lily asleep in her crib nearby. She felt a crushing wave of sadness wash over her as she picked up her sketchbook, the only refuge she had left. As she poured emotions onto the pages, grief mixed with desperation came alive in her art, reflecting the turmoil within her soul. But the revelation that would ultimately change everything was just around the corner, simmering beneath the surface. Davidson, feeling increasingly isolated and threatened, found himself befriending a co-worker, a woman who offered him an escape from the stress of home life. Their friendship began innocently enough. She was kind and understanding, everything that seemed to be lacking at home. However, the lines of friendship blurred as he unexpectedly confided in her about the struggles he faced. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, he admitted one evening over drinks. The moment of vulnerability exposed a pattern of emotional manipulation and distraction that would further erode the marriage. As Davidson ventured deeper into this emotional entanglement, he found solace where he felt validated, unaware of how it would impact his family life. Meanwhile, Michelle remained oblivious to his emotional infidelity, focusing intently on her art and the growing acknowledgement she was receiving from peers in her community. But the harmony of Michelle's artistic journey would soon clash with the revelations that would come crashing through the front door, ultimately leading to a confrontation that none of them were prepared for. As friendships evolved and relationships faltered, the shifting dynamics within their marriage transformed the path they had once traveled together into something dangerous and unpredictable. As infidelity crept into their lives, the emotional toll became too heavy to bear. Michael began to sense a change in Davidson's demeanor, a tension that lingered like a storm cloud between them. Her intuition told her something was wrong, and soon the threads of love they had once knitted together unraveled, revealing the devastating reality that lay beneath. The spotlight would soon shine on their crumbling marriage, pushing them both into a corner where choices would demand a reckoning neither had anticipated. It was in this fragile moment that the imminent tragedy would unfold, catalyzed by betrayal, hurt, and a moment of desperation that would change their lives forever. As the pressures of Michelle and Davidson's marriage mounted, her emotional state began to unravel, leading her down a dark path toward desperation. The strain of their relationship was intense, and as time passed, the resentment she felt towards her husband started to mingle with her fears about their future. In the back of her mind, a troubling thought began to take root. What if there was a way out, if only she could find the means to secure her freedom? Life insurance, once a pragmatic choice for their family, began to represent an escape for Michelle. She recalled the policy they had set up together shortly after Lily was born, a plan designed to provide for their child in the event of an unforeseen tragedy. But now those same policies seemed to whisper of potential financial relief rather than protection. The thought was unsettling, but the despair she felt pushed her to consider all options. Weeks of silent frustration had cultivated a fertile ground for dark thoughts. Michelle grappled with feelings of inadequacy, resentment, and heartache, emotions that coalesced into a dangerous cocktail of hopelessness. The idea that she could be financially independent, free from the emotional turmoil of her crumbling marriage, began to consume her intentions. In her mind, a dark rationale emerged. If her situation felt impossible, perhaps there was a way to make it feasible, albeit with devastating choices. Her interactions with friends further fueled her discontent. During gatherings, the chatter often revolved around financial stability and the importance of planning for the future. "You have to think about what happens if something goes wrong," one friend cautioned while discussing life insurance. "You just never know." The words lingered in her mind, twisting into something more ominous as she began to connect the dots of her discontent. As Michelle withdrew into herself, she also noticed a change in her lifestyle, one that came from her hunger for independence, mixed with a steady diet of emotional disillusionment. She began to focus more intently on her art, pouring her pain and confusion into her work. But instead of clarity, the artistic outlet often left her feeling more entrenched in solitude and despair. Conversations with Davidson became increasingly strained and disconnected, littered with accusations and defensiveness. "You're just obsessed with your art now," he would say dismissively. "Don't you care about our family? You're always lost in your world." Each comment struck Michelle as a reminder of her fading ambitions. It seemed all the more clear that while Davidson enjoyed his well-appointed life, she was left feeling stifled and diminished. Moments of tension prevailed in the household, and every unkind word started to fuel new narratives within Michael's mind, narratives that painted Davidson as an antagonist to her hopes. After a particularly bitter argument over a missed anniversary dinner, the frustration boiled over during a night spent alone in their bedroom. Canvases surrounding her had been untouched in the hours spent reflecting on loss and disappointment. "How did it come to this?" she thought. "All I wanted was to be a happy family." In her solitude, a desperate thought crossed her mind. Could relief come from a life insurance payout? The sheer audacity of such an idea settled in the quiet recesses of her heart, riding the whirlwind of her emotional state. Was it really so far-fetched to think about a way out? Emily began to view the life insurance policy with new eyes. She wouldn't just be securing Lily's future. Perhaps it was the only solution to escape the emotional prison she felt trapped in. "I would do anything for my child," she told herself more than once, slowly rationalizing her way to a dark conclusion. A flicker of greed intertwined with desperation. It would be enough to provide for Lily, to give her a fresh start. What more could one seek if it meant a better future for their child? As Michelle became increasingly absorbed in her thoughts about life insurance, she started researching details discreetly. Late at night, she would sit in front of her laptop, her fingers trembling as she typed phrases like life insurance policies and beneficiary changes. With every click, she felt both a thrill and a deeper sense of despair. What had begun as a search for financial security morphed into something far more unsettling. Those late-night sessions led her down a rabbit hole of chilling information, stories about individuals who had plotted similar crimes, the ways in which insurances could be manipulated, and how couples had turned tragedy into profit. Each story echoed brazenly in her mind, and she found herself thinking, if they can do it, why can't I? Yet, even as thoughts began to take a darker turn, the duality of Michelle's life remained. She was a devoted mother, filled with a love that could move mountains, but she was also a woman teetering at the edge, wrestling with rising tides of bitterness and vengeance. The emotional toll of her deteriorating marriage continued to weigh heavily on her. During gatherings with friends, there were often conversations about love and partnership, a delicate reminder of what she used to cherish. "Love should never come with conditions," one friend remarked during a light-hearted discussion, her words striking Michelle profoundly. As she listened, the anguish inside her deepened, transforming hope into longing. It wasn't long before Michelle's resentment toward Davidson transformed into bitterness she could no longer ignore. Every flirty text message she later discovered, each late-night absence spent away from home, began to twist her thoughts in an unsettling way. "He doesn't care about our family, he only cares about himself," she thought bitterly. After yet another argument over finances, when Davidson once again brought home less than ideal news about his work, Michael's endurance finally shattered. "You're never here for us. You chase success while I'm left holding everything together," she yelled, feeling a rush of emotional chaos take hold. As time marched forward, the cracks in her marriage widened, and the divide between love and greed threatened to consume her entirely. Michelle had crossed a threshold where the bond of love started to feel more like a prison. The emotional pain of betrayal would force her to confront the darker inclinations of her mind, leading her to a fateful place where choices would be made that could not be undone. In this tempest of emotion, the stage was set for a tragedy that would ripple through the lives of everyone involved. With the entangled threads of love, greed, and desperation weaving through the fabric of her existence, Michelle stood on the precipice of a devastating decision, one that would ultimately lead to unimaginable consequences not only for herself, but also for the family she had fought so passionately to protect. As the emotional turmoil intensified within Michelle, the notion of a way out became not just a fleeting thought, but a steady path she felt she needed to pursue. It was a decision grounded in desperation and the belief that her child deserved a secure future, free from the stifling constraints of an unraveling marriage. Michelle's journey into the realm of unspeakable choices began with meticulous planning. Her research was secretive. Late nights in front of the computer transformed into excursions into the depths of the internet. What started as innocent queries about life insurance soon morphed into a disturbing exploration of poison. What kinds worked quickly, what was undetectable, how to administer it without raising suspicion. She navigated pages filled with chilling information, her heart racing as she read accounts of people who had successfully used various toxins. This could solve everything, she told herself in her moments of solitude as she pored over articles under the dim light of her laptop screen. Every click led her deeper down a path she never thought she would consider. During those long nights, Michelle found herself alternating between waves of guilt and cold resolve, justifying her increasingly twisted thoughts. No one would know, she reasoned, convincing herself that the act was a means to an end. It's not about malice, it's about survival. If I do this, I can ensure a stable future for Lily. I can finally be free of the heartache and lies. In her mind, she painted a scenario where she would be able to claim the life insurance money, allowing her to start anew without Davidson's influence shadowing her choices. She envisioned a life where she could be an artist again, live unencumbered by deceit, and raise Lily in a loving environment, one free of the emotional frictions that currently weighed so heavily on their family. She purchased a small quantity of substances under the guise of needing them for her art projects, claiming they were materials required for her latest painting. It was a calculated risk, but Michelle felt confident in her ability to maintain composure amidst the distilling storm. Every transaction was carefully executed to minimize suspicion, using cash to keep the purchases untraceable. As the days progressed, Michelle's demeanor shifted. She became more secretive, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the weight of her plans. Friends and family began to notice the changes. Her laughter faded, and her enthusiasm for art dimmed. "Are you okay? You seem really stressed lately," her friend Maria asked, concern shadowing her features. She carefully concocted an elaborate plan, imagining the exact scenario in which she would administer the poison to Davidson. It would happen during dinner, when he would be relaxed and unsuspecting, perhaps enjoying a bottle of wine that she would season with the substance for a slow and undetectable effect. In moments alone, Michelle rehearsed the evening in her mind, perfecting the smile she would wear, distracting him with light banter about their day, all while taking the necessary steps to ensure his demise would look like a tragic accident. "This is the only way," she reassured herself. "I'll be free, and Lily will be safe. I can finally reclaim the life I once envisioned." The actual date for her calculated act loomed closer, marked ominously on her calendar, a day that felt both liberating and suffocating. As the sun set on that fateful night, an electric tension hummed in the air. It would be an ordinary family dinner, one that would transform into an irrevocable moment in time. In the hours leading up to the dinner, she moved through her routine, trying to maintain an outward facade of normalcy. As she prepared their meals, stirring pots and arranging plates, she made a mental checklist of everything she needed, the carefully measured poison hidden beneath a strategically placed container of spices, an innocent salad alongside their meal, and a bottle of wine that would mask her true intentions. As dinner approached, Davidson arrived home later than expected, the faint scent of alcohol on his breath as he greeted her with a distracted kiss and a half-hearted smile. "Sorry I'm late. Work was a mess today. Hoping to unwind tonight," he muttered as he grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Everything's ready. I thought you'd enjoy a nice dinner after the long day you've had," Shell replied, trying to project enthusiasm while battling the turmoil inside her. They settled at the dining table, the atmosphere filled with a deceptive sense of comfort. Laughter echoed from their daughter's room where Lily played, yet Michelle felt the tension building in the pit of her stomach. She steeled herself as she served up the meal, placing the carefully prepared dishes in front of them. "Looks great, babe," Davidson said as he surveyed the spread, his voice laced with an undercurrent of distraction from his long day at work. He was far from the man she had fallen in love with. Fatigue and stress overshadowed everything. As they began to eat, Michelle engaged him in light conversation, attempting to maintain a sense of normalcy. "Did you see the pictures from Lily's art class today? She created the most beautiful painting," she beamed, hoping to draw his attention. "Yeah, I saw some of it. She's really got talent," he replied, but his tone hinted at disinterest. Michael felt her heart sink a little, the reality of their emotional disconnect cutting deeper. Then came the moment she had rehearsed countless times in her mind. "Do you want some wine with dinner?" she asked, moving toward the kitchen. As she fetched the bottle, she felt a surge of anxiety mingled with resolve. "This is it. Don't turn back now," she reminded herself quietly. As she returned to the table and poured the wine into 2 glasses, she made sure it looked inviting, the rich color swirling gently. Setting the bottle down, she slid a glass toward Davidson. "Cheers to us and to a fresh start as a family," she said, forcing a smile despite the turmoil in her heart. "Cheers," he replied, lifting the glass without suspicion. They clinked their glasses together, and for a fleeting moment, Michelle felt a pang of regret, a fleeting mourning for the love that had been. As they drank, the tension began to diffuse slightly and they resumed their chatter. But as the minutes passed, Michelle watched him carefully, her heart pounding with the anticipation of what was to come. Everything felt like a blur as Davidson spoke about his day. Suddenly he paused mid-sentence, staring at her intently. "You seem different tonight. What's going on?" His suspicion rose like the tension in the air.
"Nothing. Just trying to keep things light." She quickly deflected, forcefully brightening her smile, continuing to push aside any impending doubts. "I want us to enjoy this time together, especially after everything."
As they finished their meals, Davidson began to show signs of fatigue. The long day was wearing him down, his eyelids growing heavy. Michael knew that now was the time to execute the final part of her plan. Excitement mingled with dread as she set her resolve, recognizing that she was close to achieving what she believed would bring her relief. "Hey, do you mind if I take a quick shower before we settle down?" Davidson asked, his fatigue evident. "I just feel drained. I need a minute to wake up." "Of course, take your time," Michelle replied, masking her growing anxiety with a calm facade as he walked away, allowing her a brief moment of solitude. As soon as Davidson disappeared into the bathroom, Michelle felt a rush of urgency. This was it. She was at the precipice of her plan. With her heart pounding, she quickly glanced at the meals they had shared, still on the table, remnants of what had been another fleeting moment of domestic bliss. In the kitchen, she opened the cabinet where she had hidden the small vial containing the poison. While she had carefully prepared for this moment, a wave of doubt washed over her, mingling with the fear that this was the final choice she had to make. Michelle had every intention of ensuring a better future for Lily, but at what cost? Taking a deep breath, she uncapped the vial, her hands trembling slightly as she measured out the required dose. It was critical to get this right. She couldn't risk detection. Pouring the substance into the wine glass, she felt a wave of dread mix with determination. This was her moment to reclaim her life. "Just a little more," she whispered to herself, focusing on the swirling liquid as it mingled with the deep red of the wine, disguising anything that might hint at the dark reality lurking beneath the surface. The deception felt surreal, a race against time as she hurried through the motions, reminding herself of Lily's future. Suddenly, Lila's laughter broke through from the other room, pulling Michelle from her thoughts. It was a sound of innocence and joy, a reminder of everything she was striving to protect. With that thought, a flicker of guilt threatened to overwhelm her. "What am I doing?" she asked herself, gripping the counter for support. But within moments after he had taken the poisoned wine, an uncomfortable warmth spread through his body, accompanied by a gnawing nausea that twisted his stomach. Davidson opened his eyes and glanced at Michelle, who seemed to be watching him carefully, an unreadable expression on her face. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, her voice steady, although Davidson detected a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Yeah, just tired," he replied, forcing a smile, though he couldn't shake the unease curling in his gut. "I think I need a minute to recover from the day." Michelle nodded, her demeanor calm yet charged with an intensity that only heightened Davidson's awareness. "Why don't you lie down for a bit? I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything." With a slight wince, Davidson pushed himself off the couch and made his way down the hallway toward their bedroom. Each step felt heavier than the last, and by the time he reached the room, the waves of dizziness started to ebb and flow, leaving him feeling lightheaded. Once inside, Davidson lay down on the bed, hoping that rest would clear the unsettling feelings taking hold. However, the discomfort only intensified. His stomach churned, and a cold sweat began to break out along his brow as he fumbled to pull himself up. "What's going on?" he muttered to himself, panic creeping into his thoughts. Just then, he heard an anxious knock on the door. It was Michelle peeking in. "Davidson, are you sure you're all right?" "Not really," he admitted, slumping back against the pillow. "I feel kind of dizzy and sick. I don't know why." The concern in Michelle's eyes swiftly shifted to alarm. "Maybe you should sit up and drink some water," she suggested, a hint of urgency creeping into her otherwise calm demeanor. As Davidson attempted to rise, he felt a wave of nausea crash over him, forcing him back against the soft sheets. "I'll be fine," he insisted, although internally he could feel the world beginning to tilt. The reality of how quickly he was slipping into discomfort nested thickly in his chest. Minutes passed, but the nausea did not relent. Instead, it grew stronger, now accompanied by a sharp pain in his abdomen. Davidson's thoughts raced as confusion took hold. What had happened? Could this simply be a bug, an allergic reaction? He tried to dismiss the symptoms, determined to soldier through, but his body was betraying him in ways he couldn't comprehend. As he sat on the edge of the bed, the room began to spin, and he felt the terrifying grip of dizziness overwhelm him once more. "Michelle!" he called out, his voice shaky as he struggled to stabilize himself. "I really don't feel good. Something's wrong." Within moments, Michelle was by his side, looking alarmed as she saw the sheer pallor of his face. "Should I call for help?" she asked, concern etching lines across her forehead. "I don't think it's that serious," he responded weakly, even as the color drained completely from his complexion. Laying his head in his hands, he could feel the world closing in, the nausea transforming into sharp, cramping pains that gripped his stomach. "Maybe I should just lie down," he said. But deep down, he knew that something was very wrong. As the night unfolded, Michelle started to panic. She had intended for her plan to lead to freedom, but seeing Davidson so vulnerable helped her recognize the gravity of the situation she had created. Hours passed, yet Davidson showed no signs of improvement. The flushed warmth of fever mingled with the chilling reality that enveloped them. Finally, as Davidson began to grow weaker, Michelle made the crucial decision to call for medical help, guilt and fear intertwining as she dialed 911. "He's really unwell. He's been experiencing severe nausea and abdominal pain," she explained nervously over the phone, feeling every moment count. When emergency responders arrived, they worked quickly to assess Davidson's condition. As they took his vitals, Michelle stood to the side, her mind racing with turmoil and regret. "What if they find out?" she thought, anxiety twisting her stomach tighter. The truth behind his illness lingered as a dark spectre within her. Davidson winced as the paramedics began examining him, asking questions about what he had eaten, any medications he took, and the duration of his symptoms. Each inquiry felt like a spotlight shining down on Michelle, exposing her hidden truths while Davidson lay there, disoriented and pale, grappling with the confusion of the unfolding chaos. "Have you changed anything in your diet recently or taken any new supplements?" one of the EMTs asked, looking seriously at Davidson as he lay on the stretcher. Davidson shook his head weakly. "No, nothing unusual. Just a regular meal, a little wine with dinner." "Wine?" Michelle interjected, her heart racing as she carefully navigated her words. "He had a glass of wine, and I made dinner. Just a simple meal." The paramedics exchanged glances and one of them turned to Michelle. "Has he had any previous health issues or allergies? It's important for us to know."
Despite the urgency of the situation, a cold sweat trickled down Michelle's back as she considered the implications of their questions. She felt her heart race and bile rise in her throat. "He's healthy, nothing serious," she stammered, struggling to keep her voice steady.
The paramedics were efficient. They secured Davidson to the stretcher and began to lift him toward the door. As they moved, he groaned softly, his discomfort clear. The sight of him being wheeled away stirred a tempest of guilt within Michelle. She could feel the walls closing in around her. This was no longer just about her feelings of betrayal. It was a life-threatening situation that she had orchestrated. "Ma'am, can I take your information?" one of the medics inquired, breaking through her thoughts. Michael nodded numbly, providing details while feeling the rush of emotions mix with a strong desire to disappear from the situation entirely. The journey to the hospital was filled with apprehension. Upon arrival, Davidson was whisked away to the emergency room as doctors and nurses immediately set to work assessing his health. Michelle remained in the waiting area, anxiety overwhelming as she paced nervously. Every minute felt like an eternity, filled with the dread of uncertainty. What would the medical staff uncover? How would they react if they found out the truth behind what had happened? Suddenly, the hospital doors swung open and a doctor walked toward her with a concerned expression. "Are you Mrs. Harper?" he asked, looking directly at her.
"Yes, I am," she replied, her voice quivering slightly. "How is he?"
The doctor sighed, steeling himself before delivering the news. "Your husband is stable, but experiencing severe symptoms that suggest possible poisoning. We're running tests to determine the cause, but we need to know if there's anything you can tell us about what he might have ingested." Michelle felt the ground shift beneath her feet as the weight of the situation crashed down. A wave of panic rushed over her, and she fought to maintain her composure. I don't know. We had dinner, but I've never poisoned him. We just had wine and a regular meal."
The doctor's expression remained serious, and he nodded as he took notes. "Of course, we need to rule out all possibilities. It's critical that you provide any relevant details that could help us in his treatment." In that moment, reality hit hard. The gravity of her actions collided with the terrifying implications of the doctor's words. Poisoning, she had crossed an irreversible line, and now the truth hung over her like dark clouds, threatening to siphon away everything she had ever loved and known. She was standing on the precipice of a devastating choice, and the unraveling of her life had begun.
Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a nurse approached her with an update. "Mrs. Harper, your husband is stable and responsive. We've run initial tests that suggest something abnormal in his system. We're waiting for confirmation on how severe it is, but he will need to be monitored closely." Just as her anxiety peaked, the door to the room opened, and in walked a detective, a tall, serious-looking figure, donning a badge that announced his presence. Michael's heart sank at the sight, knowing that the moment of reckoning had finally arrived. "Mrs. Harper, we need to ask you some questions regarding your husband's current condition," the detective said, matter-of-factly, his voice devoid of emotion. "We have reason to believe that foul play may be involved." As the gravity of the situation settled around her, Michelle felt a wave of dread crash over her. She was caught in a web of chaos. What would she say, and could she keep her truth hidden? After some thorough investigations by the detectives, the truth was revealed that she poisoned her husband. She was arrested immediately for further questioning and legal processes. After weeks of testimony, emotional turmoil, and a grueling legal battle, the time had finally come for the verdict to be delivered. The courtroom was packed, a tense atmosphere hanging heavy in the air as family members, friends, and onlookers gathered to witness the outcome of a case that had captured the community's attention. Seated at the front was Michelle, her expression a mix of anxiety and a deep sense of dread. The reality of what she had done weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she had chosen to plead not guilty, attempting to frame her actions as a moment of desperation fueled by overwhelming emotional pain. Surrounding her were supporters and family members who grappled with their own tumultuous feelings, each one facing the repercussions of her choices. After deliberation, the verdict was finally presented, echoing through the courtroom like an inevitable thunderclap. We find the defendant, Michael Harper, guilty of second-degree murder. The judge continued, "Given the nature of the crime and the circumstances surrounding the case, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in prison." Several outbursts erupted from the gallery as the implications of the sentence began to settle in. Mixed with shock was a cascade of tears. Friends wept openly, while others stood numb, struggling to make sense of everything that had transpired. As the reality of her future dawned on Michelle, the full weight of solitude pressed down upon her. She was separated from her family, her aspirations, and the life she once knew. The gavel's sharp sound echoed through her mind, sealing the fate of her marriage and future, an unthinkable act that had turned into a heartbreaking tragedy. This tale marks a haunting reminder of the perils of obscured emotions and the desperate lengths one might go to in the name of love. What began as a longing for safety and independence morphed. In moments of emotional turmoil, individuals may find themselves acting in ways they never thought possible, navigating the storm of their pent-up feelings. How do we measure the consequence of our actions against the backdrop of deep-seated hurt? What lines are we willing to cross to reclaim our dignity and fight for love? For those of you who are new to our channel, make sure to subscribe for more gripping crime stories, psychological explorations, and the complex narratives that speak to the human condition. Join us on this journey as we delve deeper into the intricacies of love, betrayal, and redemption. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts.